Good afternoon. Welcome to the Labor Forum. You are listening to WRFG 89.3 FM in Atlanta, and my name is Diane Mathowitz. I'm a retired auto worker. I'm a member of UAW Local 10 here in Atlanta, and I worked for 30 years on assembly lines for General Motors. I am so pleased to be here today. We've got a great show with some wonderful guests, real good examples of working class activism and struggle, and we'll get into that in just a second. The music that starts the program is We Do the Work by John Fromer, and I always appreciate that song because it sort of says to me why I do this program and who I get to interview. It's all those that do the work, and there's so many elements of jobs that people don't always understand are absolutely critical for the final product. And so I like that song. I hope you do too. The opinions that are expressed on this program are not necessarily those of the Board of Directors, staff, or volunteers here at WRFG. But as you know, I say every time after I have to do that disclaimer that this program and the voices that you hear on this program are core reasons why WRFG exists. And that is that we want to bring out all of the issues, the opinions, the solutions that are not to be found on corporate media, because that is all interested in profit and how to make money. And here at WRFG, we're interested in justice and how to be fair and to liberate people from all of the oppressions that we face. So this program today is, we have several guests in the studio. They are all members of the American Postal Workers Union. And we're going to be talking about this issue of staples and the privatization of the US Post Office. So I want to welcome to the program. We're going to have a third person. I'm going to say hello to him as soon as he walks through the door. But right at the moment, we have LeRoy Lavender. Hi, LeRoy.
Hello.
And we've got Kenyon Beasley. Hi, Kenyon.
Hey, how's it going?
And so, and who's the third person who may be walking in?
William Flannagan.
Oh, William Flannagan, the president.
Absolutely.
Okay, he's a busy man. All right, we're going to go ahead and start. And again, I want to make sure that everybody knows that you're maybe listening on your radio as you're driving to or from work. You could be listening on your computer at www.wrfg.org. If you're real fly, you can be listening on your app, on your mobile device. And if you are really a special person, you are listening and watching on the YouTube channel, the Labor Forum YouTube channel. And so if you're watching, you can see that both LeRoy and Kenyon are wearing these bright blue shirts. And on it is a big old stop sign. And in it, it says, "Stop Staples, the U.S. mail is not for sale." So let me start with LeRoy. What's the slogan about?
Well, Staple and the US Postal Service have cut a deal that jeopardizes your mail service and your local post office. The Staple deal will replace full-service U.S. post offices with knockoff post offices and stores that will not be staffed by postal workers, sworn postal workers.
So basically, I mean, we have seen privatization efforts on literally every sphere of public life, education, on and on, hospitals, everything. And we know that there's a big interest in UPS and FedEx and a number of private corporations in getting this really lucrative business that the US Postal Service offers to the public, not to make money, but to serve the public. So, okay, so Staples wants to set up little post offices in its stores. Could you describe again, though, what that actually means for postal workers? You all are part of the workforce that's in the post offices. So if Staples sets this up, what does this mean for, for neighborhood post offices?
Well, basically what it comes down to, the workers who are there now, they're pretty much secure. What we're worried about is the future. We got a whole group of people out there who very well should have a future in the post office, but this is a threat to that opportunity. Post office is a great place to work. No, we don't always agree with deals or actions that they take, but that's why we have it here. We're here to take care of that particular situation, and we do our best. But when they go outside to a private entity, cut a secret deal, but we have no kind of idea of what's going on, it's a threat. I mean, anything secret when it comes to a public service proves to be, in the long run, a threat. That's what we're here for. We're fighting that.
Okay, so one of the things that I think I've had many other postal workers on, because this has been a crisis that's been impacting. There have been shutdowns of distribution centers, they've been closing post offices, they've been selling really magnificent postal buildings, literally for nothing to big moneyed interest. But what's the genesis of this? What's the root? Why is it that the Postal Service says that it wants to strike this deal? I mean, we could talk about union busting, which is obviously a big thing.
Yes.
But I want to get back a little bit as to why they claim, the management of the Postal Service, why it claims that it's got to do these kinds of deals because they don't have any money.
Well, I would like to say this. First of all, there's plenty of money. That's one of the reasons the private companies want to get a hold of postal services, because you're looking at a $65 billion in revenue just for the post office by itself. That's not including the private mail companies. It's not including FedEx, UPS. That's all part of the mailing industry. Now, these companies, FedEx and UPS, are claiming record profits each quarter. Well, the post office originated this industry. Why are we in the hole? It's a bunch of, I think I heard somebody say some time ago, voodoo economics. They're creating bad news out of nothing.
Could you address, and I've had other postal workers talk about this decision by Congress, this piece of legislation that Congress makes the post office pay years in advance for the benefits for workers that haven't maybe even been born, much less hired.
I believe it. It is true. 2006, it's called a PAEA, Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act. It put a burden on the post office that no other entity in this country has to deal with.
Probably the world.
Yeah, I would venture to say that. You're absolutely right. $5 billion a year before one stamp is sold, before one piece of mail is delivered. The post office starts out $5 billion in the hole. 75 years they've been mandated to fund retiree health care.
In advance.
Yes.
In advance of even somebody being hired.
75 years in advance. I'm thinking about my grandkids, but I'm not going to go in the hole right now. We need to take care of what's going on right now. That money should be used to innovate and progress from where we are right now, and that's what's not happening.
All right, so this was a move by Congress, and one could argue, and I'll go ahead and argue it, that it was very deliberate to essentially drive the post office into a financial quagmire,
Yes.
at which then the only options appear to be to lay off postal workers, close distribution centers, and decimate one of the strongest unions
Yes.
in the federal service.
Yes, absolutely.
And everybody's shaking their head.
And may I add to that, when you said that with this payment, the health care, we were required to do this, pay 75 years in advance, and was given the 10 years to do it. Okay, but the problem is not a problem the way it exists now. We're overpaid.
Fully funded is what he said.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. People who couldn't see, I had my brow wrinkled because in my opinion, there's no worker who's overpaid.
Okay.
So I was trying to figure out who was
We're fully
overpaid.
funded.
So in other words, the post office has met its obligation.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and listeners, we've been joined by William Flannagan.
Yes.
Right, hi, and we're going to slide this mic back and forth here. You're the president of
Yes,
this
I'm the
local.
president.
I know you were busy, and I'm glad you found your way to the station of WRFG. So welcome. So we've been starting this conversation, and maybe I could ask you, if you know, and I hope you have this number right at the top of your tip of your tongue, which is how many members are in the local here, and how many could potentially be impacted if this Staples deal goes through? if you know that.
Well, I do know that we have a 2,600
Can you get a little
members.
closer to them?
Yeah, we have a 2,600 member in our organization as far as the local is concerned. This particular project would actually affect thousands of people because overall it's a nationwide program and not just something locally. Right now, they have 84 stores that have the Staples project going on immediately right now. And eventually they want to have all the stores with a postal counter in it. And they basically are just knockoff counters is what we're referring them to. As the
All right, let me ask this question. You can go into lots of places, drugstores, grocery stores, and buy stamps.
correct.
Okay. So what is it that the Staples store, I mean, it's not they're just selling stamps. What is it that they're going to be doing that is it an absolute 100% just like my neighborhood post office?
Well, it's not 100% because basically what they will be doing as far as the mail classification, yes, they will accept all mail classification. They will take priority. They will take express mail. They will take first class mail. They will do basically everything other than money orders.
Oh, so they wouldn't do money orders?
They would not do money orders.
But they're accepting my money to to send this package overnight, express, whatever.
Right, and that's one of the problems we have with them not utilizing postal employees. Because as postal employees, I'm sure it's been said that we take an oath to protect the sanctity of the mail. Also, we're uniform, and you know that you're dealing with a federal employee with your mail. And it's not just treated as a pack of paper where you scan it over a scanner and you know, go on about your business. You want to make sure your mail gets delivered from the point that you drop it off to the point of its destination. And that's what postal employees do. We're paid to do it, and like I said, we're uniformed. You want your mail professionally done, and like you mentioned, when you go into stores, gas stations and whatnot, yes, you can buy a stamp, but those people are selling those stamps just as a means of convenience, not as a postal store. They're not portraying themselves as a postal operation. Staples is actually portraying themselves with the logo as a post office, and you actually are given the impression you're in a post office. So, you know, if you go in a lot of grocery chains, they have banks on them. They don't use bank, you know, grocery store employees. They use bank employees. And the reason they do that is because they want to protect the sanctity of their business and utilize people that they train. Right.
Right. And they have accountability.
And accountability.
And this is nothing against Staples
No.
employees at all.
I don't know.
I don't know what Staples workers make, but I'm venturing it's probably pretty low wage. And I would assume there's turnover.
Yes.
And I would assume that there's a lot of part-timers. And so I do think that the thing you're talking about is the pride that postal workers take in doing their job. And as you said, you've taken an oath. We're going to take a short break right now, and then we come back. We're going to talk about this upcoming National Day of Protest that's going to take place at Staples stores across the country, including right here in Atlanta. So please stay tuned. You're listening to the Labor Forum here on WRFG 89.3 FM in what turns out today to be a sunny afternoon. Still a little chilly, but sunny nevertheless. And so we're happy again to bring back our three guests. We have three members of the American Postal Workers Union in the studio. And they're talking about what's really a critical issue. You know, so many times we talk about what appears, maybe some people might say, oh, wow, I'm not so sure about that. But we're talking about the slippery slope that ends up with just about everybody with no benefits, no decent pay, no security on their job. And that's really where, you know, big banks, big corporations, and now it looks like, unfortunately, the management of the post office, Postal Service, is trying to head. I'm not sure which one of you wants to give us the information about the demonstration that's coming up. Oh, I'm going to do something before we do that. What is your all's solution to what has been described as this crisis of the post office? In just a few words. I'm going to ask each one of you What's your solution?
Well, in my opinion, the solution is to basically use postal employees. If you're going to have a postal counter in any other business, use postal employees. It will grant you the security that you want with the mail. And we do have a lower level employee, what we refer to as a PSE, in the clerk side of this situation. Those employees could be utilized. Right now, management is actually assessing employees from one area to another, stating that we have too many people in certain post offices. They can utilize those employees instead of sending them 50 miles out or 100 miles out, disrupting homes, livelihood, and things of that nature. So we do have other people who can be utilized. Just utilize the postal employees. That's the only thing we're saying.
Any other, in the bigger picture, any other solution you all want to offer, or should we just go into what's happening? You want to go ahead?
Well, what I'd like to say as far as a solution is just include the union in any decisions that are made. I mean, when you're talking about going outside and making a deal that has an effect on the post office as a whole, we care about the post office just as much as any management official. I mean, it's our livelihoods. We just like to be included and offer some kind of resolution to the situation that would make it work for all of us, the community, the post office, management, and union alike. I don't think it's that difficult simply because they sit down and they negotiated the contract, you know. I mean, labor contract.
Okay, so essentially you're saying that this whole Staples thing came as a surprise and a shock to you all.
Yes,
All of a sudden, boom,
Absolutely.
Staples is going, we got post office.
Well, let me add one other thing. It is a secret contract. We had to go to court to get access to the contract, and when we got it, everything's redacted.
So in other words, you don't know, nobody knows apparently, except Staples and the post office management, how much money Staples either is getting paid or paid to get this in there. Okay.
Or whether or not we are paying Staples the way it looks. Just be upfront with us, as before. Just be upfront. Again, we have the PSEs that you can use in those areas. I mean, if you're looking at costs, if you're looking at a cost factor, but bottom line, just be upfront. And since we've started the protest, for the record, you've closed over 250 some stores. That in itself proves that
Staples has closed those.
Staples have closed 255 stores. That in itself proved that it was a bad deal. And now you want to hide behind the fact that you want to keep the information from us, the unions, by simply saying that Staples now is a vendor as to why you can't divulge certain information.
Oh, I see. You know, secrecy in government,
See,
it's just like the biggest
problem.
thing. You know, Georgia is just riddled with it, the U.S. Government, yay, Edward Snowden. Okay, let me go now into, in these final minutes, about what it is that's going to happen on this National Day of Protest at the Staples store here.
Well, basically what's going to happen is on a national scale, the union will be protesting in front of all the Staples stores, or as many as we can. Here in Atlanta, we're going to do it in front of the Lennox store out in Buckhead. But we basically will be doing a uniform protest throughout different cities in the United States, just to get the message out, and we're basically trying to get it out to as many people in the public as we can. And it is important because it's just like Brother Lavender was mentioning with the closing of the Staples stores. If they close the post office, they have to go through the community. You know, they have to go through Congress. With closing the Staples store and a post office inside it, what happens to your mail? You know, what happens to that counter? Nothing. There's no accountability, and we need that, and we need the public to know that. And we're basically asking all the public to join us. We'll be joined by other unions during this protest, the mail handlers, the letter carriers, the rural carriers, the Labor Council, and others will be out protesting on the 24th.
Can you give the time and somebody give the actual physical street address?
The street address will be 3535 Peachtree Road, Atlanta, Georgia, 30326, and the time will be from 12 to 2 here in Atlanta.
Let me just ask in the last again couple minutes. There's been, there's been so many different kinds of protests across the country around the closing of local post offices that had a big impact, particularly on older people,
Right.
in rural areas. The post office is such a center of the community. These distribution centers, I've said this on my program so many times. My mail carrier is carrying mail and delivering mail at 8 and 9 o'clock at night. I cannot, and I know it's because, in part, because these distribution centers have shut down, so it's further for the mail to come to my little neighborhood post office and for them to get it sorted, and the routes have been added to him, and so, again, this is a service as it's in the Constitution.
Right.
Let me just ask that. Let's talk about that. What is it that makes the post office such a unique entity that it's actually in the Constitution?
It's your post office.
Right. Right.
Not for sale.
And it's not for sale. Ben Franklin didn't try to sell it. In
So-
leadership, we stand by and let it be so.
And I think the other thing is that the post office has to deliver mail to every single address, correct?
Every
Yes,
Yes, correct.
every address.
Every address. And so I think again, I think this is again something else that when we talk about all the work that goes into every product, every service. Many people may be very cognizant of the UPS and the FedEx folks, and the UPS folks are a union, and more power to them, and especially the ones who got the jobs back in New
Yes.
York.
Right.
Yay for union solidarity. But I am aware that when UPS and FedEx don't want to deliver someplace, they give the
Post office.
packages to the post office, because
Yes.
you go everywhere.
And that's one of the biggest thing with the Stop Staples project that we're doing, because if they continue on this path and they move from staple stores to other businesses and whatnot, then what jeopardizes the post offices do start closing. There is basically a way for privatization, which means the stamps goes up, postage goes up, and delivery is not done to every single corner of the world, basically. With the post office, we deliver to these rural areas that no other entities go to. FedEx, UPS, they don't go there. They give it to us.
I want to close out. I want to thank you, all three of you, Union Brothers, for coming in, and I think you really illuminated this situation very well. I hope you'll come back and we'll talk about this some more, because again, as I said, the issue of a service that every person in the United States gets at what is really a really low price.
Cheapest in the world.
And that is because it is not a for-profit entity.
Absolutely.
A service.
It is a service. And so I want to thank you so much for putting up this fight around Staples and privatization, because it is just one of the many ways that every corporation is trying to figure out how to get more money out of working people and at the same time lower our living standards. So I want to really thank you all three for coming in again. One more time, it is Thursday, April...
The 24th.
Say it all together. Thursday.
April 24th, from 12 to 2.
At the...
Staples location, 3535 Peachtree Road.
That's in Atlanta, downtown Buckhead.
All right, and real quick, if somebody can do it very fast, if there's a website, telephone number, or email.
StopStaples.com.
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 Very easy to remember. Thank you again, and I want to thank all of you who are listening, and we've got to get on out of here and get in for Democracy Now! And for the person who's been trying to call, I'm going to answer your phone right now.